Hello and welcome to Planet Zoo. So today we're back in Thailand, the island zoo, and I have a brand new habitat to share with you. Now, something that is very unique to Thailand is the style of the historical Buddhist temples that they have over there. And my plan for the zoo, I knew eventually I would at some point add a temple. And since the build so far has gotten to the heart of the first island, I figured this was the perfect place to put it. I've got to admit, I was a little bit apprehensive about doing a temple build, and that's because it is, for me at least, quite a challenging structure to create. It's a very intricate design, and a temple has got to gel well with the landscape, otherwise it'll look out of place. I did ponder whether I wanted to carve a temple into the cliffside of the mountains over here, but as this build has progressed, there is an issue surfacing that may mean I never make it to building things over this side of the island. Unfortunately, currently my game is starting to struggle to cope with the piece count. It's an unfortunate problem that I feel like a lot of Planet Zoo players probably encounter this at some point too. The game is truly limitless in terms of what you can create, but it is still limited by the power of your own computer hardware. For me right now, the gameplay is okay when I've only got the game running, but as soon as I try having the game running, plus recording footage for video, plus having a voice recording software running too, that's when my current PC setup is starting to struggle. The good news is, I think I figured out what the problem is. I think it's to do with the amount of memory I've got. So I do have new RAM on order, and I'll be doubling the memory capacity from 16 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes very soon. So I'm super happy to have an upgrade, and fingers crossed it'll have a significant impact on the longevity of this series and how far I can keep building. I'm fairly confident I'll at least be able to get the entirety of this first island completely filled. How we get on after that, we'll have to see. I mean, I have plans for this second island over here. Oh, just ignore the random pieces up here. This is where I dump all the stuff that I borrow from other builds I've done in the game, or stuff that I'm saving for future builds, so just ignore all that mess. Anyway, the island itself, I do have plans for it, and it would be a shame if the limitations on my hardware ends up being the reason that I can't see that through. Anyway, that's all stuff in the future. Right now, I should really show you around the temple that I built this week. So here is my temple build. And I've converted this into an Indian elephant habitat. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, didn't she say in the first episode that she was only using Southeast Asia animals in this build? Well, it's more that my idea to build this zoo was born from the Southeast Asia Animal Pack DLC. So, of course, you can guarantee by the end of the series, I will have added probably every one of the Southeast Asia animals into the zoo. But that's not going to stop me from adding other animals, as long as they are native to Thailand, and the Indian elephant is indeed found in Thailand. Before I settled on the elephants, I did also have a play around with the habitat. I tried a few different animals in here before settling on the elephants. But because it turned out to be quite a big, grand structure, animals like the sunbear were completely overshadowed by the buildings, and I felt that was a little unfair on the attention which the animals should be getting. It just so happens when I put the Indian elephant in here, it feels like it's right at home. It's the perfect size, and I don't think any other animal would really do it justice, so that's why we have the elephants. Anyway, about the build, my influence for this has been the traditional Buddhist temples of Thailand, particularly the grand elaborate temples in and around Bangkok. This is something that I haven't really researched before, but if you go and look at examples of Thai temple architecture, it's really impressive. I mean, impressive isn't even enough of a word to explain how it looks. It is just breathtaking. The grand palaces and the temples over there, they are very defined, very intricate and elaborate, and just exploding with colour. And you can't help but notice they are particularly fond of gold. So having looked at a lot of designs again on Google Street View, and also searching the internet for some tourist lovely photos that they've uploaded, I have, to the best of my capabilities, and with what is achievable with the in-game pieces, tried to replicate this. The most complex part of this build is actually what looks most insignificant, and that's the roof. This is a custom roof because the in-game Southeast Asia roofing wasn't giving me the look and feel that I needed. The game gives us this traditional clay-tiled roof that has some nice curved pieces, and that's actually what I used on the binturong indoor viewing area over here. It is fine and all, there's nothing wrong with it, but for something like the temple here, the pitch is too standardised and it's too flat in these sections. I really wanted my temple roof to have more of this pitch where it starts off quite severe and then it tapers out to create this very much traditional Southeast Asian architecture shape. My biggest issue with this, I mean, it did take a long time to develop a custom roof like this, but worst of all, each of these tiles is an individual piece. So if we look inside the roof, yeah, what's in here is quite messy, and it makes the total piece count of this build absolutely nuts. The temple alone, if I was to hazard a guess, I would say it's coming in at around 5,000 to 7,000 pieces. Because it's not all one building, I mean, it wouldn't let me make it all one building, there's too many pieces, so it's definitely over 4,000. Because it's not all one building, I actually lost count. So yeah, bit of a headache there, but end of the day, I'm much happier with this than using the standard clay roof piece, so I'll deal with the piece count. The rest of the temple, I've tried to keep up with this very elaborate, intricate, lots of gold pieces decorated everywhere sort of feel. The gold stuff, by the way, it was quite a challenge because in Planet Zoo, we've only got about 4 or 5 gold pieces. That was a case of getting creative to make it look different in different parts of the build. The inside of the temple, this is where we've got the hard shelter. This is a through and through, so we've got an open door on each end for the animals to run through. Inside, I've got the gold trims again around the windows and the door here, and I added this fabric drapery. That was for no other reason than I thought it fitted with the theme. It's a tad unnecessary, but I thought it looked nice. So, a nice little temple build there. And, you know, even though I was apprehensive about starting this, I'm kind of happy with how it turned out at least. Right, so what else do we have going on outside? I am pleased with how I incorporated the walls into the build here. Now, this is actually a functional wall, and it does have a path buried into it, so the guests can walk around up here and get an elevated view of the elephants. They can also get a walk around the back of the enclosure here, and with the windows there, this gives them a nice view inside the hard shelter. The wall behind this, I added this because it's kind of like a little shortcut around the back of the enclosure. This starts from all the way over this side by the bathrooms back here, and then you go up the ramp and you pass overhead of the adventure playground and nice view of the rainforest cafe there. That then runs past the elephant enclosure, and you get down these windy little steps here back to the start. Just one of those little features that I've added to try and tie all this build together. I do like when I'm building things in Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster to have these little areas that interconnect. Something else I like to think about is the sightlines, and that's why this build isn't all just one flat level. I've added hills, I've got little steep roads, we've got these little buildings everywhere on different levels so that when you're looking from the road level, you can see all that nice detail up in the distance. So with the temple build here, you can see this all the way back from the river. The little overlook point I added here with the feature fountain, again, this is traversable by the guests. So I've got some little benches set up here for them to have a little rest and a look around. This little overlook, I added that deliberately so that you have this really nice sightline going all the way up to the top. Unfortunately, the steps on this section here that lead up to the temple, this isn't traversable. There's no path underneath. That's because after fiddling with the path for about a blooming hour, I admitted defeat. These stairs that I've used are prefabs that come with the South America DLC, and they do look really nice, but they're too steep. So whenever you try and put a path around them, it just doesn't work. You have bits of the stairs sticking up, or you end up with it where it's so low that the guests are going to be walking through there and they'll be knee deep in the blooming temple blocks. That doesn't look nice either. So yeah, after about an hour of fiddling, I decided it's fine as it is. So that's everything added to the zoo this week. Another habitat and more of the main island filled in. next week, I'll be building something within this space in the middle here. And I've been planning something for this space for quite a while. I'm actually quite excited to start building this because I did attempt something like the build I'm going to do next week early on in my Planet Zoo days. It did come out alright, but it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. Since then, we've had DLC updates and there's some new pieces that will work really well with what I've got in mind. So new stuff next week should be quite exciting. Anyway, if you've made it this far, let me know what you think of the build in the comments. A temple build for me, it was a bit of a gamble and I was a little apprehensive about doing one. It would be good to hear from you guys if I did alright with it. Anyway, before I keep rambling, as ever, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.